The jury seems to be still out at this juncture in the campaign in terms of how Michelle is being perceived by the American public. I mean, of course, there are a lot of different polls, and who knows how accurate all these polls are, but she does have some negatives along with the positives. If you had to describe her to some of the people who just aren't sure what to make of her just yet, or have negative feelings about her, what would you say?
Well, the people who have negative feelings probably haven't given her a chance and haven't gotten to know her yet. Michelle, I describe as kind of true. She's for real, she's down to earth, she's honest and candid, and she is, what she is. She's decent to her core. She has this wonderful sense of responsibility to make the world a little better place than the way she found it. She's the most wonderful mother that you could possibly imagine. That's the most important thing in her life, are her true children. And part of the balance that she's gone through with the campaign is taking time away from them, which she's not want to do because obviously Barack isn't at home nearly as much as he would want to be. And so I think, Michelle is terrific. She's absolutely terrific, and I think what you've seen is a distortion of her, and that anyone who really gets to know her, and I've been with her, as I said, on the campaign trail, I've watched the way she has touched the hearts of Americans all across our country. All different kinds of people resonate with Michelle when they have a chance to spend some time with her. And I think that part of the campaign is an opportunity for people to get to know her. So I don't pay attention to the polls. I mean, I really pay attention to the audiences that react to her. And what I see is warmth and resonance. She resonates with people. She often on the campaign trail will talk about this balance of work and family and how hard it is for moms across the country who have young children to try to have a career and be a good wife, and how you make that balance work. And I've seen men in the audience, fill up with tears thinking about their moms or their spouses or their daughters and what it's like for them. So it's not just women with whom she resonates.
Has it been hard for her to suddenly find herself thrust on this national stage?
Oh, well, sure.
And all the scrutiny and dissection.
Well, every little soundbite, of course, counts, and of course it takes some getting used to. This isn't anything that anybody would normally just, hit the ground and love. But I think what has kept her kind of sane is that she's very comfortable with herself. She knows who she is, and she knows when somebody's distorting who she is. And so having that good sense of self and confidence and inner strength and peace, and knowing that she really can't allow all of those distortions to become a distraction, because the most important thing is to stay focused. And so anytime something happens that's less than positive, she'll say, look, let's not lose sight of the people in the United States who are really struggling. That's what we're fighting for here. We're fighting so that Barack can win and he can help, with the American people, change our country. So she doesn't allow any of the personal attacks on her to keep her from the singular focus of helping her husband get elected. And I think she's a terrific surrogate. There's no better surrogate for Barack than Michelle.
One of the major criticisms against our current president, George W. Bush, is that he's so inflexible he isn't willing to admit when he's made a mistake. Have you ever heard Senator Obama say, I shouldn't have done this, or admit a mistake, and if so, what was it?
Well, I think, this is how I would describe him, which is a contrast to President Bush, which is that Barack has, as I said earlier, this kind of insatiable appetite for information and for knowledge, and he's constantly either refining his thoughts or improving his thoughts. And so he would say, he's constantly like a work in progress. And I think what you want in a president is somebody who's not rigid. And it's not even really a matter of admitting a mistake or not, but somebody who can accept the fact that we can always improve. And I think part of how he was so effective as a state senator and then again in the U.S. Senate is his ability to walk on the other side of the aisle and listen to a perspective which might be very different from his, and to figure out, well, how can we craft a compromise that's perhaps better than the two polar extremes? And that's where he's so effective. You can sit down with someone with whom he disagrees on 99% of the issues. He can find that 1% common ground, and then the next thing you know, that 1% is turning into 2%, 3%, 4%, and pretty soon you have, the ability to reach an agreement and move forward. And that's what's so unusual, I think, about his leadership gift.
What about voters who worry about his lack of experience? He hasn't spent that much time in Washington, which
a good
of course
thing.
could be
a very
seen
good
as a positive. But I think there is a degree of trepidation, slight anxiety about his level of experience.
Well, I think that's where the burden is on us to talk about his track record. And here is somebody who, when he finished school, could have gone to Wall Street, could have had any one of a number of jobs, and he started his career as a community organizer on the south side of Chicago, working with families who lost their jobs when the steel mills closed. I think that firsthand experience, not to mention his childhood growing up poor at times, helped him with this kind of empathy for the struggle of the American people. And I want my president to know what it's like for people who are least fortunate in our society. I want somebody who has worked firsthand with a family who can't figure out how to make ends meet, notwithstanding their effort to work. I think that gives him a level of empathy and connection with the people who are most in need of government working for them as opposed to in spite of them. And so that's the beginning of the career. And then you look at his track record in Springfield at a time when, the Democrats weren't in control in Springfield, the Republicans were, and here this young state senator is able to come in and take on controversial issues and help get legislation passed through just sheer willpower and ability to communicate and to forge these compromises that I talked about, as well as his leadership in the U.S. Senate. And so I guess when you say experience, I would say what kind of experience? I would prefer to have someone like Barack Obama who's able to walk in all different parts of our society and find common ground and bring out droves of people to participate in the electoral process, many of who've never been engaged before. And that's the experience of his lifetime, again, starting as a community organizer. And so at this moment in our nation's history, if you were to choose, if you look at our current administration, and you look at all the years of experience of Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld and all the folks who got us into what everyone now admits is a war we should never have gotten into, and you ask yourself, what's the single most important foreign policy decision that has been made in this country in the last however many years? Who got it right? The people with the experience, the conventional experience, or Senator Obama, who stood up in the middle of an election campaign when going to war was popular and took a position opposed to the war? And he listed all the reasons why he didn't think the war was a good idea, and he was right on every single reason. That's the kind of experience I think our country needs.